Welcome to the Board Game Snobs podcast. Critically harsh reviews with a touch of class.
Hello. Hello, everybody. It's Jerry of the Board Game Snobs. But this is not a Board Game Snobs episode. This is Jerry's special quarantine spectacular episode. Again, recording without my dear friend Gabi. I hope he's recording stuff too and putting it out there. I hope it's not just me, because really I think the chemistry that we have is what makes the show. And the more I record these by myself, the more I realize that I hate my voice and that this is very difficult to do alone. You must have a slightly overweight Chilean as your primary host to be successful in the podcasting community. I think this is the thing. I know that's key. Anyways, send us an email at boardgamesnobs@gmail.com chastising me for making fun of Gabi's weight, because I need to stop doing that. And also, just let us know how you're doing. We have people who listen to us all over the world, and we're worried that you're all right. No, we're not worried that you're all right. We're worried that you're not all right. See, this is why I shouldn't podcast alone. Speaking of being alone, I've been playing a lot of solo games here lately, as most of our listeners probably have. And I've talked about it before in the past, that one of my favorite games is Coffee Roasters, which just got a reprint by Stronghold Games. Me and Gabi were going to do a podcast comparing the two differences in between them, the old version, the chassis version of, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, it's the company that's owned by the Japanese designer, and the new version of Stronghold Games. There are some differences, both aesthetically and in the gameplay, and I don't like change. And when I first started playing the Stronghold version, I was worried that I would not like it as much as the original. Back and forth, doing a side comparison, and I will say, I like the Stronghold edition. It's very nice. I like the box, I like the color, I like the design, I like the small changes that they made. The rule book's very good. They did an excellent job. They did an excellent job. And so kudos to Bonacore, and a fine addition. My favorite type of coffee, because I am a coffee snob. Well, I say that. Right now, I've stockpiled just a bunch of cheap coffee. And I'm as you get older, what you find is that you go through these stages maybe of when you first start drinking coffee, mainly you're just drinking milk with coffee, and you're putting sugar in it, and then slowly you kind of get away to maybe you just put a little bit of creamer or a little bit of sugar, and then finally you reach that stage where you're just old. You're an old coffee drinker, and you just drink black coffee. That's the stage for which I'm at now. I drink black coffee. I drink strong black coffee, and so then you kind of transcend that to where now any coffee is good to you. You just want that kick of caffeine, and next thing you know, you're just buying cheap coffee. But one of my favorite coffees is one that I get from Aldi's. I don't know. I'm assuming y'all have got Aldi's everywhere. It's a new addition to us here in the South. But Aldi's has a fair trade German roasted coffee. I don't know what the difference is of a German roasted coffee. Is it, what are the Germans doing to their coffee that's different in comparison? I wish I knew. So either way, this coffee has been roasted either by flames that originate in Deutschland or by a German themselves. So they could be making this down in Austin and just having a German fella roast it a particular way. I don't know what German roasted means. It's a product of Germany, but it's Arabic coffee. None of this makes any sense. And apparently it's distributed in Illinois. So I'm confused. But I really like this fair trade German roasted coffee. I like it black. It's very robust and creamy, as indicated on the bag. Anyways, so solo gaming got me thinking about coffee roasters again, and I wanted to talk about that for just a little bit. In the past, I had ranted and raved about how I wish we got more games from different areas of the world by different types of people, by different types of designers, because you get different types of creations naturally. Different types of people are going to make different types of games. So, Sashi, the creator of Coffee Roasters, you can look him up on BGG, and you can find his website for all the games that he makes. And a lot of these games are not available for us here in America. They're hard to get your hands on. He has several games that all have a very similar color palette and design, and all of them look like games that I would be interested in playing. They're all somewhat lightweight, but have a small twist to them. For instance, there's one called In Front of the Elevators. I'll read you the description. It's a card game where the objective is to get more of your families in the front of the elevator line at a department store than the other players. That's a weirdly themed game. But when you look at the actual game itself, it looks like it's a hand management game. I'd like to play this. He's got several other games that, again, most of them are in Japanese, and I can't read some of the box art on it. But there's another one, Remember Our Trip, and it looks like it is a game. It's an abstract strategy travel game which combines drafting and pattern building, and it's a board game that recreates a map of a city where the players visited together. After returning to your own country, you and the other players have gotten together to recall the map of either of Kyoto or Singapore, depending on the board game that you choose. You need to piece together the scenery of the map using fragments of your memory, with you earning bonus points if your memory matches that of the main board of the other players. In the game, each player has an individual board, while everyone shares a common map board. Each of the 12 rounds of the game starts with a revelation of a memory card, which shows one of the 6 patterns that players can build on their board with tokens. Over multiple rounds, you'll compile the image tokens next to one another, and if you have the right tokens in the right shape, suddenly you remember the building that matches the shape and the image, and you place that building on the common map and score points. This looks like a neat little game. I'd love to play this, but this is like almost unavailable in America. So just to point this out, these games are all made by the same designer, or not by the same designer, the same company, the same publisher, and they all look to be somewhat interesting, but yet they're not really available here. But we've seen more and more over the past several years, numerous games come from Japan, and I think that's kind of that's just interesting to see the types of games that come from different regions of the world, and that's why I've been touting this, that we need to get more designers, a diverse pool of designers making board games, because the next great game could be designed by somebody that is not a well-known designer at this time. Anyways, I'm getting off my high horse. Yeah. So, making recommendations for other ways for which you can fill your time if you're quarantined and isolated like I am. A lot of you probably have Kindles or other devices for which you read. And reading's good for you. It's a great thing. And perhaps you should try reading a good book. I myself are not big into fiction. I tend to like history. I tend to like some science. I at times get into certain fictional books, but one of my favorite books is entitled A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. Now, Bill Bryson's an excellent writer. He's got several great books, but his best, without a doubt, is A Short History of Nearly Everything. And you can get it on your Kindle, so you don't have to walk out to your local library and get it. But this book should be required reading in every high school. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a brief history starting back on the cellular level all the way throughout history. And what this book does is that it just gives you a very brief overview of what was taking place, and he describes things in such a way that it piques your interest in a topic. This book is very hard to get through. Not because it's hard to read, it's very easy to read. But what ends up happening is that you'll go through several chapters of this book, and you'll read something, an historical event, a person, a place, something that piques your interest, and you'll stop and you'll end up trying to look up more about that person, event, or place, and you end up reading a book about somebody else that you found in this book. And so it's very difficult to get through. You have to start over and pick up where you left off. But I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite books to have around and just open to a random page and just start reading. It's highly entertaining. Anyways, this has been another purposeless episode of the self-quarantine special with I'm the host. I am the host of this. I'm not only the primary host, I am the secondary host and the star. This is my podcast, and there's nothing that you could do to change that. So there's that, and I'm glad that you've listened to this, or maybe you didn't. I don't care. I'm putting this out here so that maybe for 10 minutes you can forget your worries and maybe be mildly informed or entertained or just distract yourself. This is Jerry, and how do you turn on Audacity? I'm using Audacity to record this, and you got to make it stop.